Welcome to the TEFL Training Institute podcast, the bite-sized TEFL podcast for teachers, trainers, and managers.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have two of our favourite guests back. They are...
Dave Weller!
Hurrah!
And Simon Galloway.
Hello everyone.
Thanks for coming back.
Cool. So, do you want to, just before we launch into our topic, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a training manager for a group of people, and I also mainly a diploma in TESOL tutor.
Wonderful. And Simon, what do you do now? Because
These
it might
days-
be different from before.
Well, these days I work in online distance learning training for teachers that are mainly based in China.
Right, so both of you kind of obviously encourage people to work together to learn things, right?
And we both deal with, I think, with that challenge of trying to get them to cooperate while they're online and while they're not actually in the same physical space. So they might be based in different cities or even different countries, but we still have to help them to work together.
And Simon, would you say that that's the biggest difficulty you've got in the online learning?
I think a lot of the difficulties that I get in online learning. Thank you for the question, Dave.
So
Good question.
in the online learning.
Just forgot how to speak English.
Had to use articles. So I think a lot of the challenges that I face with online learning are somehow linked to that, yes.
It's funny because I'm doing my MA at the moment, and yeah, whenever there was a group task and it was like talk to someone else, my first reaction was like, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna study by
And
myself.
why do you think that you felt that way?
I think I felt it was like too much hassle, or it was just this extra effort to go and speak to someone. I didn't mind the thing of like commenting on other people's posts, but I think I also kind of thought like, am I really going to make the effort, like speaking to someone that I'm doing, an 8-week course with? I'm never actually going to meet them. It seemed like kind of a bit of extra investment for kind of not very much of a return. But on the flip side of that, like when I was doing my diploma, beyond all the learning and getting the bit of paper, one of the most useful things was having a network of like-minded people. I'm sure you found that, both of you probably.
Absolutely.
as well.
I mean, like this was I first met Dave
That's right.
doing the diploma together, and I first probably got to know you better through doing the Idiotum.
That's right. And even when I was doing my diploma, I remember you lending me your portfolio, right? Oh, not your portfolio, but your teaching journal.
Teaching journal, yeah.
Which was useful. So there's obviously some...
To see how not to do it. He then got like
being
about
pretty useful.
25% more than I got.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, I think.
The examples you are talking about were mainly focused on, I think you guys just talking about like learning experience and for, I don't know, when you're doing courses and, a teacher or maybe a trainee, right? And they're doing courses. But I think what I experience right now is about students. They're learning and either study English individually, having one-on-one class or with a group of students and then having the classes with one teacher. I think we want to see how it's going to work if individual one-on-one class is going to be better than group class. But very interestingly, I think last year I know one company and they're doing some kind of experiment. So they have 4 or 5 students in the same class and then one teacher. And then they try to put some kind of brain test machine on the teacher and also each individual student, and then to track how their brain
Like mental
works.
activity and
Yeah, something like that. And then compare to individual learning environment. And that the main outcome from this test was you can see definitely the students and their brainwave were more active when they're doing group learning together.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned learning online, because I think all of us, if you go back 3 years, we're all working pretty much completely offline, and now all of us are mainly or pretty much 100% working with online stuff. I think that's a shift that seems to be representative of a move in the whole industry, right?
And even if you scan the job ads, not that I have been, mainly now it's a lot of online teaching. Like the fact that different groups on social media is becoming dominated by people who are working online. So just keeping your finger on the pulse, there seems to be a large shift of people towards online. Much like I guess the students are moving towards online for the convenience, having that teacher in their own home. So the teachers are doing it so they can work from home and have the associated benefits as well.
I'm doing an MA dissertation at the moment, and it's looking at collaborative or cooperative learning for online training. And I've done quite a lot of research into cooperative learning, and I think that's quite interesting. Like as Tracy said, there doesn't seem to be very much evidence or research done into actual like cooperative online learning, but there is a lot of research into just general cooperative and collaborative learning.
Simon, do you want to give us a quick, introduction about the different approach, basically, right? Collaborative and cooperative.
I guess due to economics and practicalities and sort of general like efficiency, generally through history, people have been taught in groups. But of course, like traditionally, it was often just the teacher talking to the whole group, and they weren't cooperating with each other. So there was a big movement in the 20th century towards actually getting the students to actually work together and do tasks together. And a lot of this came from Vygotsky, that everyone likes to name drop, but not many people actually know much about what he really said.
Do you know he was only 38 when he died?
Yes, I heard that.
Amazing, right? That he achieved,
so much.
Yeah.
That's probably why he didn't actually I don't think he said like a lot about how to put his ideas into practice. Like it was all theory. I think that's probably because he died so young. He had this idea of like social construction, where your idea of the world is constructed through interactions with other people. And of course, some of that's like the zone of proximal development, where children will learn through interacting with adults, but you can also learn through interacting with peers, because they're always going to know something that you don't, right? There's always going to be something that they know, or some advantage that they have where you can learn.
Did I read somewhere as well that for kids they're actually more ready to take on the feedback and ideas of the peers than they are of the teacher? I'm sure that was in one of the studies that you said.
I thought that Vygotsky's social construction was formed from the basis of that. I didn't think it was an ongoing thing. So that's like language and culture merged together once you are interacting with somebody else, and that forms a basis, and from then on you're able to learn individually. I didn't think it was an ongoing process.
It seemed from the articles that I've been reading that there are elements of ongoing process, so that even when people are adults, they're in the classroom or learning anything, that they can learn more. But it may not be necessary, but I think one of the key ideas, one of the other key ideas that seemed to come from that was this idea of like cognitive conflict.
So it was the idea that like you get children to work together in groups, and if they have like conflicting information, that makes you challenge your worldview.
Exactly,
and
yes.
that is really effective in getting children to re-examine their assumptions about the world.
Yes, yeah. It's absolutely, yeah. It's related to kind of cognitive dissonance, because often when people hear a new bit of information, like they think that they understand it and are taking it in, but actually they just kind of like connecting it with something that they already know. I've seen this with people like taking on like trying to do TBL, for example, or something. Like they think, well, I now understand TBL, but all they've really done is just teach their normal class.
They gave them a task,
and they just put the task at the beginning, but there's no actual like focus on the students, or on the students and teacher learning from the first task and then building that into the practice and into the language that's studied after that. So they think that they've done TBL, but they've just renamed exactly what they're already doing with a slight change in the procedures. So if they actually get like a conflict where they actually have to really think about it, then they can actually like really change that view.
Well, I guess that's the case anytime you meet any new information, right? Whether it comes from peers or whether books stand. Anytime you receive new information from any source, and I guess that's what led Vygotsky to kind of come up with the zone of proximal development, because that's essentially exactly what that describes.
But it's interesting with adults, what happens most of the time is when you come up with something that disagrees with your worldview, what people tend to do is just reject the new information, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly, that doesn't happen with kids.
I don't do that.
And I guess that's why kids are learning things all the time, but at some point that must switch off, right? And we just start rejecting new information that doesn't fit with our worldview.
Well, the other point that seemed to be quite key is like the actual motivation point of working in groups. Like you said earlier, right? When you're doing your masters online, you don't really want to talk to others. But do you feel then that has any effect on your motivation compared to, say, like when you did the DIP TESOL or the IDLTM, where you actually had a lot more chance to communicate with your
Maybe there I was more invested in those other courses because A, they were longer, and B, I was working with those people in the same company, and C, at some point I would work with them or had worked with them face to face. So I think with that there was a lot more investment, you know.
So it seems to be that barrier to entry, but once that's crossed, say if the course, like the IDLTM component has a 2-week component at the beginning of the course where everyone meets each other face to face, then once that barrier's been crossed, I would argue you do feel a lot more accountable, because it's like having a gym buddy, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you have that accountability to a human being rather than to yourself, letting yourself down is much easier.
Yeah.
I think something I've been doing recently is I realized I talk to a lot of people, like teachers, they're working online, they're working in different places. I know these people's name and they know each other's name, but it's been so many months and never talked to them never talked to them. And then, okay, just organize a meeting and then just everybody meet online. So, oh, actually, you're Simon, oh, you're Dave, or you're Ross. You know, just have a personal or emotional connection first, and then it's a lot easier for you to start or continue working together. And another thing, Simon, you mentioned about motivation, group work. When I first started becoming a trainer, of course, I had to shadow experienced trainer running courses and training. I think I was motivated, but also demotivated a little bit because I think that person's ability and is much higher than I was at that point. So I thought I'll never be able to do what this person is doing. So I didn't really want to, work with the other people at the very beginning because I thought, it's so embarrassing for me.
So you feel then that maybe if you were team training or something, team teaching with another trainer, that could have been more motivating or more.
Yeah, or maybe just make me have the sense of achievement at the beginning, and then maybe start doing some little projects or training, and then get some feedback, and I know I'm able to achieve this, and then continue.
I think this is a bit like I+1, isn't it? Like Passion's I+1. Like you want to be learning from somebody that's like one level above you, not somebody that's like 3 or 4 levels above you, don't you?
Which it also sounds like the Vygotsky thing, doesn't it? Of the I+1 of the zone of proximal development, right? So it's an achievable level of challenge or something, right? Yeah.
Totally. Perhaps one reason why you don't feel motivated to maybe communicate with your MA peers might be that there's no real task that's been set up that you have to do together.
So there's not really very much investment because there's no real outcome.
Whereas real investment would come from the group, maybe it's a pair, maybe it's like a 3 or a 4 or whatever, but they'd all have like a group goal that they'd have to be able to work together, or they'd have to work together to achieve that goal, right? And I thought that's the limitation of a lot of online courses, is that they don't require people to actually work together on a single goal. It's like somebody says something and then other people comment on it, but is that like a real task?
It's not, but then again, that is the ideal situation, but it's incredibly difficult when you have people who are working in different companies with different teaching contexts, have different free time in different cities. So something I do to try and counter that, again, it's not always successful, but as the course, I run a much longer course. So over the period of months, you get to see and you have different one-to-one tutorials with people, and then you can suggest that they match up for different tasks. So for one module, learning and practicing phonology, you might set them up with a transcription buddy for somebody who's at an equal level, and maybe they have different accents as well, which so they can, when they give each other a sample transcription, they can practice that, and they match very well. Or you might match by personality or background knowledge or interest. So you're almost differentiating your learning group in that way.
The example there with the phonology is really interesting. Something I read about collaborative learning was on basic, say, math tasks where there's a right and a wrong answer. If you pair people together, or students together, the only thing that really happens is that they clarify the instructions to each other. But if it's a task where people have different worldviews or different informations or different backgrounds, that's when you get real different information, happening, and you get that, what was it called, Simon? Cognitive conflict. And almost like you could imagine that with the phonology transcriptions, giving people with 2 different accents and they have to transcribe something, then there's actually useful information and probably conflict happening there.
Okay, thanks very much, Simon and Dave, coming to our podcast. Hope to see you next time.
My pleasure.
Yay!
All right,
Bye,
goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Awesome.
For more podcasts, videos, and blogs, visit our website www.tefotraininginstitute.com.
If you've got a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss, leave us a comment.
And if you want to keep up to date with our latest content, add us on WeChat at Tefo Training Institute.
And if you enjoy our podcast, please rate us on iTunes.